Right, good morning for those that have joined us this morning. Oluyole Voice and Sikiru Akambi, good morning to you. All right, Africa Live 1 hours 107.2, time at 10:27. That is 27 minutes past 10, right on here, right in the heart of Glasgow. Right on the program today, we will be taking two quick news. So it's just going to be about two news updates, and we will be discussing briefly about it. The first one is actually a caption where they are looking at the numbers of countries that still have the death penalty. And that becomes very, very important. With the bill, or the proposed bill, it's called Hate Speech Bill, is being proposed by the Nigerian legislators. And with a sort of anybody whose hate speech leads to the death of another, that person should be the person should be executed. There's been quite so much about it in the past 1 week, so we'll actually be looking at the number of countries that still have the death penalty. And on the second part of it is one of the news that has been passed across to me, and I think it's quite very, very important for the migrants or immigrants that are in the UK. We've been involved in some of the actions targeting the where the Home Office, for one reason or the other, has not been able to follow through the due process of handling people's applications. There have been some errors. I mean, some has been due to mistakes, some has been due to errors, but of course some have been due to just some things you don't really expect. And there's a piece in the Guardian which actually seems to suggest to people that this way to deal with, they put it as the Home Office cruelty, that the way to deal with it, they propose a way that people could deal with it. And we'll be talking about that when we come back from the ad break. So please do stay on with us. Yeah, Oliroti, good morning to you. For those that have joined us on the on my Facebook Live, thanks for joining us this morning.
FM, broadcasting on 107.2 and online straight from your smartphone.
Right, thanks for joining us, Oludare Patrick. Okay, let's fly with what we've got. Right on for today. Now, I'm going to take death penalty because there is I want to pick something up here. Right on the 14th of October, I think the United Nations General Antonio Guterres marked the World Day against the death penalty by praising the effort of countries to end the practice. So far, 142 countries had abolished the death penalty in law or practice, but there is still about I'm trying to look at there's still about let's see, I'm trying to get the number of the countries that have either suspended it or they've introduced something else. So, but then we'll come right back to those countries to really take on the news and know some of the countries that still have death penalty. But that particular news actually brought me back to the news that is actually sort of a top news in Nigeria at the moment, which had to do with the attempt by the Nigerian government or the Nigeria Senate to introduce what it called its speech bill, and with the punishment for a speech to be death penalty. I mean, there's been quite lots of criticism from the members of the public, and I've got right on here, I've got quite many people. I've got even somebody having it in Sahara Reporters. If we look at Sahara Reporters, and somebody said, "Eighth crime bill is Senate of fools, blockade, ignoramuses and idiots," by Bayo Oluwasami, and that is from Sahara Reporters. Although also you have the director of the International Press Center, Lanre Arogundade, saying that it's just a complete waste of money, a complete waste of fund for the government to follow that direction. This is very important because when we're talking about the United Nations celebrating the abolishment of death penalties in many countries, we still see some countries that are even proposing death penalty, and for something like hate speech, which to an extent, with the discussion we've had so far, I mean, interaction over the social media, actually looking at hate speech in, for instance, in the United Kingdom here, when you talk about hate speech, we have protected characteristics, which has to do with religion, race, gender, and disability, etc. So there are laws that deals with other crimes, but when it actually comes to the hate speech crime, it has protected characteristics. So far, the one from Nigeria regarding hate speech has not actually dealt with that. Then there's still another one that I want to pick up, which clearly says that there are laws already which deals with cybercrime. Okay, we've got the cybercrime, which I'm trying to get. I mean, this is actually even from the federal government. So that means the federal government itself does not even agree with the Senate, with the legislators on this bill. And I'll quickly take that. Federal government faults hate speech bills, says cybercrime law adequate. The federal government faulted the proposed legislations in the National Assembly seeking death penalty for persons found guilty of hate speech. Specifically, the bill entitled the National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speech, sponsored by the Deputy Chief Whip, Aliyu Abdullahi, was introduced on the floor of the Senate on Tuesday. But the federal government yesterday argued that the bill amounted to jumping the gun, as there were already a cybercrime act which adequately dealt with the alleged misdemeanor. Fielding questions from the House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Minister of State for Transportation, Senator Gbemisola Saraki, said the sponsor of the bill might have put the death penalty there. I think we are jumping the gun a bit. Like you said, he is proposing the bill is not yet an act. Well, some people have also raised that excuse that, well, it's just a proposal, it's not yet an act. But the point is it reasonable to waste precious time? I mean, like, the legislators are right on there to represent the people. There are issues that should have priority rather than wasting time and, of course, public money discussing about things that are not relevant. We've got cybercrime. People have cited the France its speech bill, sort of, but the one with France is so clear. Is targeted or directed at people that have platforms on which the hate speech is promoted. And what the government has done is to require the owners of those platforms to take hate speech, any hate speech that comes on their platform, to take it down, to have control over their platform and take it down within certain timeline. And if they fail to do that, what the government had done in the past and it's proposing to do, obviously, is to take them responsible and to fine them. So that means that bill, talking about the France one, is a bill that could be implemented. You don't, people don't just raise bills or just raise laws that cannot be implemented. And that's exactly what we even mentioned when we, because it's not only happening in Nigeria, to be fair. When we were talking about the FGM law, anti-FGM law that was done by Scotland a few months ago, it was the same thing. FGM is not done in UK. All the political propagandas of social number of FGM, people are at risk of FGM children, social number of children, they found all those things to be false. They are just political statements. And in fact, the cosmetics, you know, private part cosmetics, or it's been found to actually cover 85% of what NHS recorded as FGM. And after the law came into force, the Procurator of Free School has said that anything that has to do with just those cosmetics, you know, people putting ornaments and co and their private parts and stuff like that, that they shouldn't be prosecuted. So you really now want to ask, what's the essence of that law if it cannot be implemented, if it is not relevant? So, and the same thing with the proposed bill in Nigeria. I've mentioned about the France one, which is so, I mean, it's so clear, you can implement it, you know who you are targeting. You know who owns the platform. Let's say, for instance, Facebook. Facebook has a name to it. You talk about WhatsApp. WhatsApp has a name to it. You talk about Instagram. Instagram has a name to it. So if anything is done on that platform and the government is not actually telling those that have the platform, like, let's say, for instance, Facebook, the government, that's France now, I'm talking about the France one. The government knew that because Facebook has created that platform, people have account on that platform, anybody can post anything. But then the owner of the platform, Mark, and his team now have the duty to ensure that within 24 hours that the speech that is considered a speech is posted, they have to ensure that they take it down within 24 hours. I mean, that is obviously giving those platform owners also the flexibility. The government is not saying that if anybody put a speech on your platform, then we'll take you on. What the government is saying is that if anybody put a speech on your platform, within 24 hours, you have to take that speech you have to take it down. And if the person continues to do it, then that means they have the right to block that person and cancel the account. So that means it can be implemented because those owners have control. Now, when you are talking about a speech that has to do with Nigeria, one, they've not told us how they actually intend to implement it. We have like the government, the federal government of Nigeria has even faulted that proposal. The government is saying that you already have a cybercrime law. I mean, anything that is on the media and which is considered to be crime, whether somebody is duping another or somebody is making some speeches that are considered to come under incitement and co, that's already covered. So why bringing this one on and wasting public time and wasting public money? So, like I said, many people have actually criticized it, and it's even made it worse when the senator was actually now saying that it should be death penalty, and people are asking what happened to. In fact, when you talk about within let's say within Africa, and I'm just being careful because it happens in other areas as well, it probably not as often as what we have in Africa, but it's during our home political campaigns and co that we have majority of these politicians making statements that incite people into violence. As at this week, we've recorded deaths in Bayelsa State as well as Kogi State, which are due to the activities of these same politicians. But they've not actually made any law or proposed any law to deal with, the things that are happening right from their own angle. And people felt that there's no reason for this hate speech bill that is being proposed other than the attempt by those politicians to stifle the freedom of the press and the freedom of speech as well. So, and that brings us to, just like as the United Nations is celebrating the abolishment of death penalty in many countries, we still have a country where somebody still felt that the best way to deal with hate speech, somebody that doesn't agree or somebody that make a speech which possibly creates violence or incite people, and people do with that incitement, and then it led to the death of people, another person or so, that person also should be killed. But then you find out that when you talk about hate speech and all that, you have things that actually involve massive numbers of people. I mean, why Nigeria is yet to identify those that are to be protected, the characteristics that has to be protected by that bill. The one in the United Kingdom has a list of protected characteristics. For instance, you have where it covers race. We have seen people that have been so when people made very discriminatory remarks, statements, and actions, which had led people into depression, isolation, and some people have even committed suicide in the past. Or when you look at, when you talk about disability, you have people that are disabled, and I mean, some people will just speak to them as if those persons should not have existed just because of their disability. So the government, in the aid bill for Scotland, for UK generally, the government protected those people. So you have also religion, of course, like in Nigeria, for instance, where this bill is being proposed, there we've had religious war as well, religious violence and stuff and things like that. So if the senator had come up with a proposal that, okay, these are the characteristics which I believed that all the other laws that we have are not adequate to cover. Then I've identified this, and we should look into this particular one. So it will really be about strengthening those other laws that are already in existence, and also looking whether another law have to be created. So one, massive number of people believe that this is unnecessary, except for the fact that the government, even while the government is faulting it, people still believe that the federal government might be pushing some of these senators to put a bill that will stifle the freedom of the people. So, right, I'll take this quickly so that we can come back to the next one, which is very, very important for people that are either migrants in the UK or some other countries, or people that have people that are migrants. So death penalty, how many countries still have it? The United Nations Secretary General marked the World Day against the death penalty by praising the effort of countries to end the practice. He said 170 states have either abolished the death penalty or introduced a moratorium on its use. A moratorium is an agreement to suspend a policy or action. So is it right? The United Nations Secretary General's report on the death penalty presented to the Human Rights Council in September this year says that some 170 states have abolished or introduced a moratorium on the death penalty either in law or in practice, or have suspended executions for more than 10 years. As the UN has 193 members, this implies that 23 states carried out at least one execution in the past decade. The United Nations says these figures are compiled from information provided by member states as well as civil societies. However, Amnesty says that 142 countries have either abolished the death penalty in law or in practice, and that in the past 5 years, 33 countries have carried out at least one execution. As per Nigeria, the execution that was carried out by the state between 2006 and 2013, 2006 to 2013, were 4. And I think the last one was in 2016, and we had only 3. Although Nigeria has over 1,000 inmates on death row. So it means that even for the number of prisoners or inmates that are on death row in Nigeria, execution is very, very low. Although they are recorded as being on the death row, but the execution hasn't really taken place in Nigeria. So for somebody to start proposing death penalty for a speech, you really want to look at whether it actually makes sense at all. But then from what I have here, execution around the world in 2017, China executed over 1,000 inmates, Iran 507 plus, Saudi Arabia 146, Iraq 125 plus, Pakistan 60 plus, Egypt 35 plus, Somalia 24, United States of America 23, Jordan 15, and Singapore 8. And that is from the record of Amnesty International. According to Amnesty, there are 106 countries where use of death penalty is not allowed by law. 7 countries which permit the death penalty only for serious crimes in exceptional circumstances, such as those committed during times of war. 29 countries which have death penalty laws but haven't executed anyone for at least 10 years, and the policy or more formal commitment not to execute. And 56 countries which retain death penalty laws and either carry out executions, or the authority have not made an official declaration not to execute. That will quickly, I'll take a comment that is right on my Facebook live here. And thanks for those that have joined us. Oluyemi Olugbodi, good morning to you. Taiwo Akinla, good morning to you, sir. Thanks for joining. Steve Undungu, the Sila, I hope I pronounced that very well. And from Oliroti, I've got this. Those guys are confused. What do we expect when we have bloated and idle lawmakers who are paid exorbitant wages for sleeping? And I think that is in relation to the Senate in Nigeria, where she believes that if they have active job doing, they will not pushed into this other one. And that will take us quickly to this one that has to do with the Home Office. And I'm going to quickly run through. And this comes under the caption, the only way around the Home Office is cruelty, is to get your story in the news. I think to an extent, it seems that the Home Office is now, I won't use the word scared, but they are quite concerned when a news gets into the news, that gets into the media. That's only when they take action. I mean, from things that we have seen, there have been lots of, people that will remember some years ago, you will remember that there was a backlog of about 500,000. 500,000, that's about 500,000 applications that were supposed to have been processed, but the Home Office, they failed in that duty. Now, majority of the people that were affected, some have families, some were not allowed to work, some have no access to public help, and some people became homeless. Some of those people, because they didn't have enough to cater for their children the way they used to, some of their children were taken by the social services on the excuse that they are not able to properly care for their children, and they were not looking at what actually led those people to that circumstance. So, but then, despite all the report by the Ombudsman, the Home Office will always give promises, but at times it kept holding people on. So the tool that people are using now is getting their news in the media. I know that majority of us wouldn't want anybody to know what we are going through. But instead of being pushed into a state of destitution, instead of being waiting until you are thrown on the street and become homeless, or before your child is taken away by the social services, without them looking into the fact that the action of an agency of the government is actually what pushed into that circumstance, that you were not able to spend as much as you used to for your child. And somebody will look like, okay, this child, maybe the hair is rough or is not wearing the best clothes and co, and that will be used as an excuse to start prompting into what you are doing in your family. And some families have lost their parents to the social services because of that. So we have this piece that is written by Sabir Singh. I hope I pronounced that very well. And I have the picture of two beautiful ladies from Nigeria right on here. That is Bumi Thomas and her sister, Kemi Thomas. Bumi was at risk of removal to Nigeria until she won an immigration tribunal hearing in October 2019. So I'll quickly take this. The only way around the Home Office's cruelty is to get your story in the news. It's appalling that immigration appeal now depends so heavily on getting the media to notice your case. No publicity, no justice. There are 8 words in the English language that, read together, trigger a unique combination of fury, despair, and laughter familiar with anybody with experience on the UK border and its gatekeepers at the Home Office. Each application is considered on its individual merits. Like a caterer talking about his commitment to hygiene the day after a front page splash about some photogenic couple's wedding day equally disaster, you usually only find this was tucked to the end of a press release in which the Home Office is admitting that it's been caught out, having not done its job very well. Instead, it has upended somebody's life for no good reason, ignoring or misjudging the fact of their case on the basic requirements of the law, buying to the political goal of saying no wherever possible. And now, after an intervention from the press has drawn attention to somebody's shocking mistreatment, the Home Office has miraculously conceded. And I'll be ending this program on that. So if you have immigration issues, which is basically getting seriously out of hand, please try to use the media if you can. It seems these days, the only people or the only platform that the Home Office respects is when their activities are exposed on the media. And until next week, where I will come your way again, stay safe and enjoy the weather. Bye for now.